26 million years ago, this asteroid crashed into Earth and wiped out most of the life on our planet, including the biggest, baddest things that ever roamed the Earth. Yeah, dinosaurs. If a rock this size hit us today, well, humans would be on the brink of extinction. Today, we look at the 5 deadliest asteroids to hit Earth, either in the past or in the not-so-distant future, and we slam them into Earth all at the same time. Spoiler alert, Earth does not win. We'll start with the smallest rock on our list, the Barringer Asteroid. And then we'll build up to an asteroid that was much, much more massive than even the Chicxulub that wiped out the dinosaurs. But before we get there, here's the thing about space rocks. They aren't some rare event. They barge in from space and hit Earth all the time. Most of these rocks are tiny meteoroids, just a few grams in weight, but they come in fast. These small meteorites slam into Earth at tens of kilometers per second. Lucky for you, they burn up almost instantly thanks to our planet's home security system, our atmosphere. But sometimes, Earth gets hit by a way more serious rock, and damage can be catastrophic. Let me take you back 50,000 years into the past. Earth was deep in its last ice age when suddenly a large space rock entered the atmosphere. This is the Barringer Asteroid. For millions of years, it was minding its own business in outer space, and then suddenly, on a perfectly ordinary day in what we now call northern Arizona in the US, this 50-meter wide chunk of iron and nickel, that's 165 feet in diameter, this chunk came tearing into Earth's atmosphere at over 15 kilometers per second, 9 miles a second. And just seconds later, it slammed into the ground with a force so powerful, it was like setting off a line of nuclear bombs. The shockwave flattened everything as far as the eye could see, and the asteroid left a massive crater for us to remember it by. Now, what if this asteroid hit us today? Well, it would be just as devastating. If the Barringer asteroid hit Earth near a major city, that'd be total destruction. This 300,000-ton bullet from space would explode with the energy of 10 megatons of TNT. It would flatten skyscrapers in an instant, shattering glass for miles. Even if you weren't at ground zero, that's the exact point of impact, you'd still feel the power of its shockwave. The blast would deafen you, and the heat would, fry you. The ground would shake as if a 7.5 magnitude earthquake had just hit. The Barringer wouldn't be a world-ending asteroid, but it would change the world for everyone nearby. Now, since we want to keep things exactly as they happened on Earth 50,000 years ago, this space rock would hit exactly where it hit then, in the middle of a desert. As long as you're not a tourist or a hiker exploring the arid expanse of Arizona, you'd be fine. Still, this new Barringer asteroid would leave a new crater. A crater that's big enough to fit the Burj Khalifa inside of it. This is what today's impact would look like. If you were watching the impact from the nearest town over, Winslow, Arizona, you'd see the kilometer-high cloud of ash and fire rising from the impact site. About a minute after impact, just as you think you're safe, the sonic boom would reach you, knocking you to the ground and shattering all the windows around you. It would be huge, but still, not a leveling a city to the ground kind of impact. Okay, while the Barringer asteroid is raising a plume of smoke and ash in Arizona, something bigger and deadlier is about to smash into South America. Barringer Asteroid demolishes Arizona! Arizona treated to brightest fireworks since the Cretaceous. If the Barringer Asteroid did hit Earth today, well, those are the two fictional headlines you might see in the news, and both give a vastly different understanding of what happened. In today's landscape, finding out the truth of anything can be difficult. Well, that's where Ground News comes in. It's a website and an app that helps you cut through the noise and see how hundreds of news outlets are reporting on the same story, all in one place. One of its most useful features is the interest pages, which let you follow news stories in categories that you care about, like science, technology, or politics. And when you find a story that catches your attention, well, Ground News helps you understand the bigger picture by showing you how coverage differs across the political spectrum, how factual each source is, and what contexts you might be missing. The bias comparison feature summarizes the bias for left, right, and center publications. Do you remember when scientists found biomarkers for life on K2-18b? Well, we sure do, and we sent Chase there to find out more. Unfortunately, his results were about as varied as the news publications. More than 400 news stories were published regarding K2-18b. This article would have you believe that there's a 100% guarantee of life on the planet, while this article highlights that the scientists discovered hints and are still mostly skeptical at this stage. Well, coming across only one of these articles, you might believe it's either a sure thing or sensationalistic journalism, but with Ground News, you can filter for bias and quickly glance at a publication's factuality score. Understanding the context of who is reporting on a topic will help you understand the truth of what actually happened. If this sounds like something that would help you sort through the noise and hone in on learning about what really matters to you, well, visit ground.news/WIF. That's ground.news/WIF, or scan this QR code. Subscribe now and get a 40% discount on their unlimited usage Vantage plan. Understanding the history, context, and factuality surrounding news events can be extremely beneficial in today's landscape. But the landscape of the ancient past had entirely different astrological problems to contend with. Astronomers first spotted asteroid YR4 in December of 2024 using the Atlas system in Chile. And let me tell you, this rock almost gave us a heart attack. By the way, Atlas stands for Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, so that should give you an idea of why this discovery was so terrifying. At first, it looked like YR4 had a 3.1% chance of hitting Earth on December 22nd of 2032. Now, that may not sound like much, but in asteroid terms, that's alarm bells territory. Scientists worldwide scrambled to refine its orbit, and as more data came in, they were able to bring that number down, first to 1% and eventually to even less than that. Now it's something like a 0.001% chance. Yeah, but that's still more of a percent chance than you ever want to hear. Of course, here on What If, we always imagine the worst case scenario, so fast forward to 2032 and cue the impact. The thing you need to know about YR4, it's big. At a length of about 60 meters, that's 200 feet, it's about the size of a jumbo jet. And this intruder from space wouldn't even need to touch the ground to cause serious damage. Yeah, instead of directly hitting Earth, YR4 would explode overhead like the Tunguska event did in 1908 in a remote area of Siberia. This rock would explode like a deadly firework and level the city beneath it. Buildings would collapse and only reinforced bridges would remain standing. Barely. Predicting exactly where the asteroid would hit is difficult. We have to take into account Earth's orbit, the asteroid's trajectory and speed, just for starters. It might land somewhere in the ocean. Wouldn't it be more epic if it landed on land? Say in northern South America? Yeah, our deadly space traveler would land in Bogota, Colombia. Bogota, Colombia is a city of over 7 million people, tucked high in the Andes, but its elevation isn't going to save it. The skies over Bogota would light up as if the sun had suddenly moved in for its close-up. Then, about 10 kilometers above the city, that's about 6 miles, YR4 would detonate in a massive airburst. It would release the energy of about 15 megatons of TNT. That's 1,000 times more than the bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima. The shockwave would rip across the city in seconds, flattening buildings, snapping power lines, and throwing vehicles up into the air like toys. If you were caught outside, first you'd be blinded by the flash and then knocked to the ground by the blast wave seconds later. Fires would break out across entire neighborhoods, and glass and debris would turn into deadly shrapnel. The destruction wouldn't stop at Bogota's city limits. The Andes would echo with the sound of the explosion. Dozens of kilometers away, windows would shatter. Nearby towns would feel like they'd been hit by a massive earthquake. Power would be out for millions of people. Communications would fail. This is where the chaos kicks in. But since the asteroid didn't actually strike the ground, well, there wouldn't be a crater. Instead, the city would be marked by a burned, flattened zone where the blast hit the hardest. It wouldn't be the end of humanity, but for South America, it would be remembered as the day of the scorched earth. Now, if something like YR4 was on a collision course with us, well, we wouldn't be completely defenseless. NASA has already tested a planetary defense strategy called DART. That's short for Double Asteroid Redirection Test. The idea isn't to destroy the asteroid, but just to redirect it while it's still in space. NASA tested it in 2022 by deliberately slamming a spacecraft into an asteroid moon called Dimorphos, and it worked. When you're dealing with asteroids, even a tiny course correction years in advance can mean the difference between a harmless flyby and a direct hit. I'd still feel safer if YR4 had a 0% chance of hitting us in the first place. But it looks like it might just hit the moon instead. What a relief. And as if South America didn't have enough to deal with, another big strike is coming its way. Oumuamua is a special rock on this list because this was the first ever interstellar object that we saw enter from interstellar space. Like it came from outside the solar system. And it was weird. Oumuamua isn't your average round asteroid. It's what scientists and I call cigar-shaped. It's 10 times longer than it is wide. We've never seen anything like it until we saw this in 2017. At first, it looked like a comet because it accelerated in a strange way, almost like it was being pushed. But scientists would never see a comet-like tail, which made things awkward. Now, it could be a fragment of a larger rock. It might have exotic ices in its composition, like hydrogen ice or nitrogen ice. Or it may even be an alien-made object, something they've sent to explore our little planetary cluster. Either way, this elongated rock is about to slam into us. First, Oumuamua would hit the top of the atmosphere, speeding at about 20 to 26 kilometers per second. For a moment, it would look like there was a second sun over the Amazon. Hey, somebody give this guy a speeding ticket. But in just a moment, it'll crash into the rainforest with about 1 gigaton of energy. A new crater will be torn into the basin. A crater from this monster would be no joke, about 4 kilometers or 2.5 miles across and 600 meters, 2,000 feet deep. Everything inside that bowl would vaporize. The shockwave would race outward, snapping trees like matchsticks and lighting the canopy on fire. From above, the world's green lung would turn into a ring of brown and black. Towns far beyond the horizon would feel the shockwave as a hard shove and a long roll. Ash would be falling from the sky. For days, it would be snowing charcoal. Oumuamua launching itself into Earth wouldn't cause an extinction level event, but it would definitely be a blast that the planet would remember. The Amazon River would run hot and cloudy with ash. Air travel would be diverted for weeks, and across the northern part of South America, crops would get less light under an ashy sky. We're not quite at the level of dinosaur extinction yet, but we're getting there. Over in Mexico, the big celebrity herself is about to destroy everything. This is the most famous asteroid out there. The boulder with the smolder, the world-ending Chicxulub. 66 million years ago, this rock, or more like this mountain, smashed into Earth on the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. And I'm not exaggerating when I say it was a mountain. Chicxulub measured at least 10 kilometers wide. That's 6 miles in diameter. That's bigger, much bigger than Mount Everest. After Chicxulub hit, Earth was never the same. First came the fireball that ignited the forests. Then the shockwave that circled the globe. A lot of dinosaurs were killed immediately, but not all of them. After the Great Fireball came the Great Blackout. The Chicxulub impact spewed dust and ash into the sky, blocking sunlight. For years after the impact, our planet was plunged into darkness. Many plant species died, and when the plants went, everything that fed on them went too. This was the most recent extinction event in Earth's history. The dinosaurs never stood a chance. But now, this monstrosity is coming to end you. Yeah, if this devastating rock were to hit the Yucatan Peninsula today, it wouldn't be the dinosaurs going extinct. It'd be you. At first, a bright star appears in the sky over the Gulf of Mexico, but it's too bright and it's moving too fast. In less than a minute, it would grow to the size of a blazing sun. Then, the impact. The blast would vaporize everything in the vicinity. The ground would shake for hundreds of kilometers with the energy of a magnitude 10 earthquake. Coastal towns would turn to white-hot ash, and the skyscrapers of Cancun would collapse from the shockwave. Cue the massive tsunami. Within hours of the impact, not one, but multiple tsunamis would be roaring across the Gulf of Mexico. Walls of water 100 meters high would slam into Florida, Cuba, and Central America. Less than 48 hours later, these huge waves would reach Australia. Back in Mexico, fires would rampage. There'd be a thick, choking cloud of dust and ash, sulfur everywhere. If somehow you survived the impact, you wouldn't be able to breathe. Look, the dinosaurs didn't survive this story 66 million years ago, and if Chicxulub were to strike again today, humanity wouldn't either. Not because of the first flash of fire, though that alone would cause a lot of casualties, but because of the long cold night that follows. In the weeks after Chicxulub, the world would fall silent. Smoke and dust would block out the sun. Earth would be plunged into a cold twilight. Soon, the food chain would begin to collapse. Famine would spread faster than relief could keep up with it. In just a few months, humanity would be living in chaos, struggling to survive. Years later, if you were still around in some sort of Last of Us scenario, you'd be walking through an unrecognizable world. Forests would be gone, coastlines redrawn, and entire species would have vanished forever. Okay, that was devastating. The smaller asteroids on this list we could recover from, but this one? Yeah, that's not looking good for humanity. Or any anity. Animal anity, plant anity. But wait, that wasn't even the biggest impact? It gets worse? What's worse than that? Okay, this one is from a really, really distant past, when Earth was young and very different from the Earth you know now. Let's go back 3.3 billion years ago. This is the Paleoarchean era of early Earth. This is when our planet was mostly a water world with some early continent-like land masses scattered around. There was barely any oxygen in the atmosphere, and with no ozone layer, the sun bathed Earth in lethal radiation. But that's okay because there was basically no complex life here. Only some single-celled organisms like cyanobacteria drifting in the ocean. Then came S2. This space rock was absolutely devastatingly massive. Yeah, about 200 times more massive than Chicxulub. So if you can imagine, the impact was enormous. S2 plunged into the shallow seas near what's now called South Africa, and it changed the world forever. But it was actually kind of good for Earth. Sure, there were humongous tsunamis ripping apart coastlines across the planet and stripping debris from the ocean floor, tossing it into the atmosphere. The surface layers of the oceans boiled away and heated up the atmosphere. Molten rock rained down from the sky. But this was the kind of shakeup Earth needed. You see, this impact stirred up iron from the depths of the ocean. And this was a good thing because now the seas suddenly became full of nutrients. All kinds of bacteria and microorganisms went through a baby boom. After the impact, early life really started to flourish. But that doesn't mean this massive impact would be good for us today. If S2 hit near South Africa, it'd be game over. For all of us. Now, I could stop right there, but let me give you some details. A fireball the size of a continent would rise into the sky. As S2 violently smashed into Earth, it wouldn't just vaporize water and rock, it would tear the seafloor apart. Yeah, the impact crater would stretch for hundreds of kilometers. Earthquakes, 100 times stronger than anything recorded in human history, would rip across the globe. After that, well, you know the drill. Tsunamis, a barrage of flying molten rock, blocked sunlight, the collapse of ecosystems, followed by extinction. Of us. All of us. Following this, Earth would change again in ways we can't even predict. A total reset. You for sure are not surviving this one. Now, if only one or two of these asteroids hit Earth at the same time, we could still make it, but add Chicxulub and S2 into the mix, and it doesn't matter how many relatively small impacts you survive. No one survives Meteorite S2. So, lucky for you that you're living today and not in prehistoric times where you'd be constantly hiding, running, being hunted down by the terrifying creatures of the past. Unless, well, that's a story for another What If.